Board of Education approving a social studies teaching plan that will dedicate more time to Texas and U.S. history. I'm Ernie Manous.
And I'm Celeste Diaz-Sherman. We'll also talk with philosophy professors Michael Brownstein and Alex Madva, who will share their perspective on how Texas Democratic legislators gain political currency despite losing redistricting fight.
And I'm Frank Billingsley, plus Bezalel Eithan Raviv, CEO of Lionsgate Network, will break down the growing concern over AI deepfakes.
And we want to hear from you. Give us a call or send us a text at 713-440-8870. Or you can always email us at talk@hellohouston.org. And you can watch us on YouTube by going to houstonpublicmedia.org and clicking the big orange banner.
Hello Houston is made possible in part by founding sponsors John Bradshaw and Kathy Sanders, and by gifts from listeners like you.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. Officials in Utah are releasing more information about Tyler Robinson. He's the alleged shooter of conservative activist Charlie Kirk. Robinson is not talking with investigators, but police say his roommate is helping authorities. NPR's Luke Garrett has the latest.
Utah Governor Spencer Cox tells ABC News Robinson was living with a transgender person.
We can confirm that his roommate was indeed a boyfriend who is transitioning from male to female.
Cox says the roommate, along with Robinson's family, are all assisting the authorities in their investigation. But the Utah governor says Robinson himself has not admitted to the assassination.
He's not cooperating, but all the people around him are cooperating, and I think that's very important.
He expects more information to be released Tuesday when the FBI forensic report is filed in court. And top of mind for Cox is learning how Robinson, who he says was a 4.0 student from a close-knit family, ended up in this situation. Cox also criticized social media companies for stoking conflict, and he compared their products to fentanyl. Luke Garrett, NPR News, Washington.
President Trump is suggesting that his administration has reached an agreement with China on the social media app TikTok. NPR's Franco Ordonez reports Trump is expected to speak with Chinese President Xi Jinping later this week.
President Trump posted on social media that a weekend meeting between the United States and China went very well. He wrote a deal was reached on, quote, a certain company that young people in our country very much wanted to save. TikTok is facing a deadline this week to either divest its U.S. business or face a shutdown of the social media app in the country, though Trump was expected to extend the deadline, as he has several times before. Trump said he would be following up with President Xi on Friday. He did not give specifics on the deal, but said that young people will be very happy. Trump has repeatedly credited TikTok with helping him do better with the young vote. Franco Ordonez, NPR News, the White House.
Well, the U.S. markets are waiting to see whether the Federal Reserve lowers interest rates and by as much as President Trump wants. The Fed holds its latest policymaking meeting tomorrow through Wednesday under heavier scrutiny. Here's NPR's Scott Horsley.
The Fed is widely expected to order its first interest rate cut of the year this week in an effort to shore up the sagging job market. The Senate is set to vote this evening on President Trump's latest pick to serve on the Fed's governing board. If he's confirmed, White House economist and Trump ally Stephen Myron could join the Fed meeting, which begins tomorrow. It's still not clear whether Fed Governor Lisa Cook will take part in the meeting. A federal judge temporarily blocked Trump's effort to remove Cook from the board, but the administration's asking an appeals court to reverse that decision by this afternoon. Scott Horsley, NPR News, Washington.
This is NPR.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Alexandra Hart. State Representative James Tallarico addressed hundreds of people in Rosenberg on Friday as the Senate hopeful made his first campaign stop in the Houston area. News 88.7's Natalie Weber tells us he framed his campaign as a grassroots movement standing up to powerful billionaires.
Standing on stage in a warm, crowded room Friday night, U.S. Democratic Senate hopeful James Tallarico made his pitch to Houston area voters. Tallarico framed himself as part of a larger legacy of Texas Democrats standing up to the powerful.
The more I see what's happening in this state and in this country, the more I think the only minority destroying America is the billionaires.
The Austin area state representative announced his campaign last week. He will face off against unsuccessful 2024 Senate candidate Colin Allred and former NASA astronaut Terry Virts. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton is challenging incumbent John Cornyn in a heated GOP primary. From the Fort Bend County Bureau, I'm Natalie Weber, News 88.7.
The Harris County Metro Transit Authority Board is set to approve a $2 billion budget later this month. It prioritizes the Metro Now program focused on safety, reliability, and cleanliness. Speakers at Metro's public hearing last week expressed frustration that the proposed budget does not prioritize the more ambitious projects promised when voters approved a multi-billion-dollar bond in 2019. Robin Holzer, the executive director of the transit advocacy organization Link Houston, urged the board to fulfill those promises, which included light rail expansion and bus rapid transit lines.
The public is hungry to overcome the financial challenges of inflation and all of the things about the pandemic and really live into the promise that we were excited about in 2019.
A final vote on the proposed budget is scheduled for next week. It's 87 degrees on the University of Houston campus. I'm Alexandra Hart, News 88.7.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Charles Schwab, offering investors choices like full-service wealth management, advice, investing, and trading on Thinkorswim. Learn more at schwab.com. And from the Doris Duke Foundation.
Live from the University of Houston, it's Hello Houston, an open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870, or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now here's your host for Hello Houston, Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
Happy
Hello.
Monday.
And it's a Monday. We've had a good Monday so far.
We do have a good Monday show. How was your weekend?
It was busy.
Yeah.
It was busy. I emceed an event, which was very cool. It was about, it was called the Six Figure Chicks, and it was a group of women that came together that all are in business in different industries, and each wrote a chapter about the challenges of launching a business or being in industry or a corporate event. So I did that. And then I went to Round Top for a girls' weekend. And then last night I went to the Disney Descendants and Descendants Zombies concert.
I am happy you clarified that because I thought you were going to say, and then last night I went to a concert. But it was a Disney concert, and it was for your daughter.
It was basically like the Wiggles for big kids.
Nice.
Yes,
like
it was fun.
Teens.
I was showing Ernie all about it. It's
yeah,
a thing.
I feel like I know so much now about zombies and the children of
and the
fairy tale
daywalkers,
evils and goods and
Descendants,
princesses. And yeah, I got quite an education.
What about you guys? What did y'all do this weekend?
Well, our friends Jason and Eric came over from San Antonio. We went to Galveston.
Yeah.
So you remember Jace Larson? He was an investigative reporter at Channel 2. Now he is a news director at KSAT, the TV station, the far and away number one TV station there in San Antonio. So he has a big job there.
Did you slide him your resume?
No.
No. Why would he do that?
Why?
You're not going anywhere, Frank.
So they came over and we made a weekend of it. And then Kevin and I watched the second Downton Abbey movie last night to refresh ourselves before we actually go to the theater and watch the full one. So we haven't seen, what was it, the New Era? Is that what it's called?
New Era was what you did see. The new one is called The Grand Finale.
The Grand Finale, okay. We did not see that one, but we will.
Yeah. We we've had a lot of movement on it. We did a reunion of our old show, Manner of Speaking, on this show on Friday, put it up online, and have gotten a gazillion hits on it. So if you want to hear the old Manner of Speaking crew back together, you can look for that on YouTube. If you want to hear our reaction to the new movie, that's a separate video that's also up on YouTube. And if you want to see any of what we do, our shows are all cataloged on YouTube, and we're streaming live right now.
We sure are.
Quickly, my weekend Friday, I was so happy I canceled all my plans and sat home.
That's wonderful.
It was so nice.
I hid
out in my bedroom upstairs, and I was very happy. Saturday night, I did an event for the Texas Firefighters Home, which is a wonderful organization. They provide housing when people come to the Texas Medical Center for cancer treatment, if you're a firefighter or a first responder, and we'll take care of your lodging. And even there's a stipend for food. And then last night, I made Italian beef sandwiches and watched In and Out of the Emmys.
I don't see anything.
I don't see anything either.
Let me restate that. We ate our Italian beef sandwiches.
Right.
Sure, they were Emmy Award winning.
They were very good.
Well,
anyway.
I thought the Emmys were interesting. It's interesting that The Bear got snubbed.
I know. Well, I haven't seen
it. So did White Lotus.
Yeah.
White Lotus pretty much got snubbed.
It got one Emmy for sound.
For musical score.
Yeah.
But doesn't it take like a season to go through? Like White Lotus, I feel in some ways wrapped pretty closely after.
Well, no, it's got its love the last couple seasons. Same thing with The Bear got its love.
That's
before.
right. The Bear was
So they
had
move
its
on.
moment.
What's new? What's the hottest, newest thing in town? Kind of like us, but talking about what's hot. How's the weather, Frank?
You know what? Pretty standard. Almost like a summer week this week. We'll see pies.
A nice summer week.
Yeah. 20% chance of afternoon showers pretty much every day. 74 for a low, 94 for a high. Feeling a little better in the evening, so that's good. And then the tropics are still pretty quiet. There's a chance of a development in the far Atlantic, but the models don't bring it anywhere into the United States. So all good in the tropics department.
Frank, when we look at the hurricane season, does it wrap November 1st?
30th.
November 30th.
Yes. For us, though, our
it.
climate changes enough. By the time we get to the middle of October, it's pretty much done.
Okay.
You know those first Friday football fronts?
Yep.
Where it just feels like
it.
Beautiful Friday night at the football stadium.
Yes.
Yeah, those fall fronts. We've had a little taste of it last week. I think we'll see a better taste as we get into October.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, moving along, I get the New York Times delivered every week to my house, the Sunday New York Times, and it comes in the little blue bag. And I never take it out of the bag. Like it sits around all day, and then a week later I throw it away and bring in the new one, and then it sits for.
It's like it's like my bagged salads.
Yeah, yes, just like a bag. Except you don't eat your bag salad online. I read the New York Times online all the time. And the reason I bring all of that up is in a little bit. There was an editorial recently in the New York Times about what happened in the Texas legislature and the walkout by the Democrats. And even though then redistricting went through, did they accomplish anything? It's a fascinating editorial, and we have the authors of that coming up on the show today. So don't go anywhere. I'm really excited to talk to them about it. But as always, we start off with the headlines. And Celeste, you've got us ready.
Thanks, Ernie. The State Board of Education on Friday approved a social studies teaching plan that will dedicate more time across school grades to Texas and U.S. history while placing less attention on world history and cultures. The board will soon begin the endeavor of developing official standards for this social studies, which will include outlining specifically what the group expects students to learn in each school grade. That process will provide the board's Republican majority an opportunity to more heavily influence what happens inside the classroom, following legislative actions in recent years to restrict how schools teach about topics like race, racism, gender, and sex. Some social studies educators are criticizing the plan's lack of attention to geography and world cultures. They also worry the plan's chronological approach would disrupt historical continuity and make it harder for kids to see cause and effect relationships. This is a quote. It says, "Relevance is what makes history memorable, and that comes alive from teaching it in context." That's Courtney Williamson, a parent of a school-age children who taught 8th grade social studies for 15 years and served as a social studies department head. What are your thoughts on this new social studies plan? Now is the time to call into Hello Houston. You can call us or send us a text, 713-440-8870.
I find a lot of this fascinating. First of all, we were having conversation and defining social studies and how they do it in the state of Texas. And history is folded into social studies in the state of Texas. They're not separate. Where I grew up, we had history and we had social studies, and we kind of looked at it in those two ways. So you have to know that, I think, going into the conversation. This is history, as we understand it for these folks. And if I'm correct, what was originally proposed was that we would break it up in levels of Texas history would be taught in 3rd grade, U.S. history in 4th grade, world history in 5th grade, then world cultures in 6th grade, and U.S. and Texas history again, 7th and 8th grade. But I guess this shifts that whole paradigm, correct?
It does. And so what it does is the core focus when we're looking at, if you're looking at for grades will essentially remain consistent. For third grade, it'll stay communities. Fourth grade will be Texas history. Fifth grade would be U.S. history. And in most schools, that's still elementary school. Once you get to 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, that's when it starts having more of an expansion of looking at global history. And I think that something also is very interesting is the reason I think teachers and the curriculum around social studies rely so heavily also on history is because social studies is the teaching of the different types of civic duty, voting, understanding what that looks like, community leaders. You learn about policemen and their role in our community and how it all works in local government.
Well, there's the chronological order that they're going to start teaching from the very beginning of time and going to modern ages as these kids get older. So they say that is a sort of a better way to do it. They think it is. What I've read, the problem is what it leaves out. It leaves out a lot of history of slavery, of white supremacy. Once you get to high school, there's a little more, but at younger ages, you don't hear about any of that.
Right.
So some of the people objecting to this, which included, I think, 5 Democrats and 2 Republicans.
Yes.
So it was not exactly split along party lines. So some of their objections were, how old do I have to be before I start hearing about people of color? And that
was one of the folks on the board said, when do we start learning about our people?
And that's what she meant, people of color.
And then another member of the board said it's too early to be having those conversations yet. We'll get into the curriculum later. Right now, we're just establishing the guidelines of what are the areas of study, and then we'll be able to address that. Now, I guess the concern is whether or not they really will get to that point or not. We'll have to follow that to see, and I hope we can have some of those lawmakers.
It did say on Friday the framework approved would teach students in kindergarten through 2nd grade about key people, places, and events throughout Texas and U.S. history. But I do think that there are a lot of concerns around what key figures are going to be taken out of it.
Right.
Correct.
As we continue this conversation, I want to do this because in our, we call these things cut-ins that we do a little bit before the actual show to let you know what's on today's show. I totally slaughtered our phone number. So if you wrote that number down and we're trying to call, I don't know who you're getting, but our actual phone number is 713-440-8870, and you can join this conversation. I'm kind of fascinated because I didn't come up in the Texas school system, so I don't know how things were taught here. As I've mentioned before, upstate New York was where I grew up, but very early on, we learned about Native American. That was built into our understanding because New York, upstate New York, had a lot of Native American and Indian tribes that worked through that area. So we learned their culture, their religion, worked in with ours. And I guess one of the critics of this new plan is that in some way by isolating out and taking these things, as they're saying chronologically, but actually it's not because it sticks you with you're learning about Texas, but how does that impact what happened to the other states, what happened nationally, what happens internationally, that all that has to work together and a woven tapestry.
Well, I didn't know that the social studies and history curriculum was broken. I mean, as you said, we kind of all learned that growing up. I learned about Alabama and all of the Native Americans that were in Alabama and the different tribes. And from there, we learned about the Southeast. And then I remember learning about Harriet Tubman and Dred Scott and, of course, Abraham Lincoln, the Emancipation Proclamation. I mean, we just sort of learned as we went through our schools and how a bill becomes a law,
Right, and then you learn about the bills and the laws. And it, I was also looking at a website that was around education specific. And it was very interesting to me because we're looking at it, what are they going to be leaving out? What are they going to be putting in? And when I was looking at this education, this website, they were looking at it more from how do you incorporate voting and types, like ways to teach this curriculum? And when I looked at it, I thought, well, that's very practical. Teachers are looking at this from they don't get to decide what they're teaching. They're given this curriculum. And I do think that we need to continuously be looking at curriculum and seeing how we can improve it. So I think that's okay. And this will go into effect 2026.
Right. And that's the part that hasn't been laid out yet, at least publicly, is what the curriculum would include.
Right.
So
and they haven't really got
this
isn't happening this year. It's happening next year.
But we got to be diligent even now. We had Nicole on YouTube commented, more government control in schools. I thought Republicans liked small government.
Small government with big control.
Yeah, 713-440-8870. We have a little time, so I'm going to move on to our next story of the day. Billionaire Elon Musk is taking issue with a recent investigation by the Houston Chronicle and the Texas Newsroom that raised questions about a flood tunnel project he's pitching to address Houston's chronic flooding woes. But experts said his response, which he did not explain to the newsroom, isn't supported by fact or data. He had a comment, he had a plan, and has reacted to them not liking his plan, but he hasn't given us the science behind his plan initially. What it basically is he is proposing to dig these 12-foot wide tunnels, put them in under Buffalo Bayou to move water through central Houston, which is where it would be flooding. The criticism of it is those tunnels wouldn't be big enough to actually handle the amount of water they need. His response back is it's less than 10% the cost of these bigger tubes, but then it becomes, well, how many of these smaller tubes would you need to actually accomplish what you need to accomplish? That's what he's talking about. What do you think? Do we need to put these tunnels? Should Elon be involved in this? Is this a good idea? 713-440-8870.
Yeah, I think tunnels are a good idea. As to how big. He's proposing 12-foot tunnels. If we need more, we'll get more.
Right.
I think the Harris County Flood Control is looking at 30 to 40 foot size tunnels in diameter. I mean, the bigger the tunnel, the more water it's going to carry.
Right.
And we've always said when it stops raining, our drainage is perfect. I mean, it gets out of here as soon as it starts raining. But we have to be able to move trillions of gallons of water so quickly during a big rainstorm and get them out, get it to the Gulf of Mexico as fast as we can. So that would probably work, but I mean, Musk, here's the thing I like about Musk is if he's getting paid, he'll probably do it quick.
Right.
You know, the government is probably going to take time and studies and, all these ideas after Harvey that still haven't been implemented. So, something's to be said for a private person coming in and making it happen.
One thing that I'm curious about in all of that is how long it takes. If you're going to rip it all up to put in a couple 12-foot tunnels, doesn't it make more sense to put in bigger tunnels right at the beginning? I'd rather have more room than, more than I need than less. I'm the same person. My mom, they were going to go in and they were going to put in a little sensor to check her heart and see if she needed a pacemaker. I'm like, if you're going in, put in the pacemaker.
We want to hear from you. Give us a call, 713-440-8870. We do have a call from Paul from Friendswood about our earlier topic. We were talking about the new, looking at new standards in our social studies systems and education curriculum right here in the state of Texas. Paul, welcome to Hello Houston. What is your call or comment or question?
Well, good morning, folks. Thank you for having me on again. I really appreciate you.
Thank you.
So I have a little bit to say about this. So first of all, curriculums have been manipulated for the last 20 years pretty heavily from financial dollars that come in, and teachers don't get choices. They literally are forced. Many, like scientists in today's world, when they graduate, they can't go and do what they want to study. They have to go study where the money's at. So that's the unfortunateness of where we're at. I think being that I'm so heavily involved in artificial intelligence, and there's an amazing school that just opened in Austin, Texas called Alpha School, where they're teaching basically only 2 hours of curriculum a day. And the rest is getting the kid ready for life. And their SAT scores are through the roof. The way that they're learning is in a way where it is effective and it's not forced memorization. So that's my quote for today. Guys, I love you all so much. Thank you for having me on. I hope you enjoy my little AI pictures sent you guys. I'll see you guys later.
Oh, we remember you and those little AI figures.
Yeah,
Thank you very much for those comments. Yes, he brings up some good points. A couple things I want to move off of all of this before we go into the rest of the show with a couple days and then an important thing going on. So today, National Cheese Toast Day. Excited about that? No, you don't seem
cheese
excited.
Toast.
Yeah.
Next.
Okay. Online Learning Day.
What else
National
Double
Cheeseburger Day.
Oh, that's good. I like that one.
And it's National Felt Hat Day. I don't know who wears a felt hat anymore.
In Round Top, I bet you can find a couple.
It's like a beret, isn't it? Felt hat.
But the important one is that today is also the start of Hispanic Heritage Month. And so let us begin the celebration. You were talking about the reason that it goes from a mid-month to a mid-month as opposed to September or October is what?
Because there are a lot of countries, Latin American countries, that have their Independence Day between those times.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Like the
Ernie,
16 de septiembre.
Don't forget who plays tonight?
Who plays tonight?
The Texans.
Good Lord. The Texans.
Texans. All right. We got to get this show on the road. Coming up on Hello Houston, Michael Brownstein, chair of the philosophy department at John Jay College, and Alex Madva, the philosophy professor at Cal Poly Pomona, will join us to talk about how Texas Democratic legislatures, despite losing the redistricting fight, gained political currency in the process. This is News 88.7. Stay with us.
With federal support gone, Houston Public Media needs a stronger foundation for the future. The Houston Public Media Resiliency Fund is our response to ensure this service remains strong, stable, and community-powered. Your gift today helps us stay on the air tomorrow and the day after that. Give now to the Resiliency Fund at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 800-364-8300.
Support comes from Pearland, Texas, a community with a variety of living options, from new construction, mature neighborhoods, and urban living, designed for any lifestyle. More at pearlandedc.com/inspiration. Pearland, inspiration lives here.
Support comes from Rice University's Master of Interdisciplinary Studies, a program for working adults designed to strengthen communication and critical thinking skills within a community of diverse learners. Details at gls.rice.edu.
When President Trump heads to the UK for a summit this week, he'll be not too far from the place where his mother's journey to America began.
It is primarily a rags to riches. Marianne basically left with a plastic bag under her arm. Very little money.
I'm Mary Louise Kelly. We take you to the Isle of Lewis, home to President Trump's mom, on the next All Things Considered from NPR News.
Later today at 3 o'clock. Support for Houston Public Media comes from Holocaust Museum Houston, featuring Growing Up Jewish, exploring Jewish identity through contemporary art. Viewing begins at the opening reception on September 18th. Details at hmh.org.
And now back to Hello Houston. Join the conversation. Call now, 713-440-8870, or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now here's Ernie Manous, Celestia Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
This summer, Texas Democrats staged a dramatic walkout to block a Republican-led gerrymandering bill. And though the bill ultimately passed, their protest didn't go unnoticed. The move sparked national headlines, political countermeasures in states like California and New York, and a large conversation about what it means to lose loudly in American politics. Joining us today are two guests who recently wrote about this in the New York Times. It's Michael Brownstein, who's the chair of the philosophy department at John Jay College, and Alex Madva, philosophy professor at Cal Poly Pomona. They argue that strategic losses, when done publicly and defiantly, can be the spark that keeps political movements alive. Michael and Jay, welcome to Hello Houston. And if you'd like to join the conversation, just call or text us at 713-440-8870. Gentlemen, welcome. I need to start off with the term lose loudly. I loved that, reading that in there. Talk about the power behind that. And when you start talking, introduce which one you are so our audience knows who's talking.
Hi, I'm Michael Brownstein. That's me. And thanks. We're glad you liked the phrase. It probably helped us land the piece. But we actually had written about the same idea in our book, which hits the bookstores tomorrow. The book is called Somebody Should Do Something, How Anybody Can Help Create Social Change. Alex and I wrote it with another philosopher, Dan Kelly. And in the section of the book, we write about people who stand up and fight back in other countries, in particular against repressive governments. And we do a sort of deep dive to try to figure out what keeps them going and particular, what keeps them fighting against long odds when it seems like they have very little chance of success.
Alex, they don't always win when you lose loudly. I think offhand about like Wendy Davis and her abortion filibuster. Didn't quite get what they were hoping to accomplish. Why do you think this may be different?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I think part of what we try to argue in the book and the piece is that we have to take the long view when we're thinking about these issues. So short-term losses can lead to long-term gains. And in particular, when folks lose loudly, other people pay attention, but it also helps to build solidarity. Other people are more willing to join the fight when they see folks fighting principled battles that they expect to lose. And so even if there are short-term setbacks, if you're growing the group, if you're growing the movement, then in the long term, it can lead to more success.
Yeah, I noticed, and welcome. Nice to see you guys. I was a philosophy major in college, so I'm glad to see fellow philosophers on the show, by the way. So let me ask you this. Like in your article, you point to the LGBTQ situation in the early 90s, and they were loud and they were protesting, and it took them a while to get there. But that's a social issue. That's an issue where you find out your dad might be gay, or your son, your cousin. You start to know someone that is in that particular party, so to speak. Politically, it seems to be a little different. So would you compare the two, the political losing loudly versus the social losing loudly? Which do you think works better?
I'm not sure that we have a principled distinction to make. I mean, to me, even though the fight for voting rights is as political as it gets, it's also deeply social because it's about whose voice counts in a society. And so I think the lessons translate back and forth pretty well, particularly the ones that Alex was drawing attention to, which is that when people show up to fight for what they believe in and fight for democracy, they don't do so under the illusion that just by showing up the fight is going to be won tomorrow, or that they as individuals are going to be the hero or the savior. What they do is they do it for the people standing next to them, for their community, or for the people they see as part of their community. And that's, to come back to voting rights, what it's all about to be in a democracy is to see ourselves as all part of the same political community, which I think is one and the same, social and political in the strict sense.
I think another thing to bear in mind when we're thinking about the political context and a democratic context is you don't need to persuade everybody, right? You just need to persuade a majority of folks. And, the national stereotype of a state like Texas is that it's deep red. But of course, we don't need to tell your audience in Houston that there's actually a really huge number of independent voters in Texas as well. And if Democrats could persuade those voters that gerrymandering is a really big problem, then they could easily turn Texas blue on some of these issues. And recent polling from the University of Austin, the University of Texas at Austin, finds that although 2/3 of Republicans in Texas support the recent gerrymandering efforts, overwhelming majorities, not just of Democrats, but also of independents, oppose those efforts. And so as a result, the gerrymandering efforts in Texas are really deeply underwater. And we think that losing loudly can help to boost the signal about that and potentially change voters' minds.
And so when we're going, Michael, that we're talking about this, when we're looking at the value in losing loudly, in many ways, like we were talking about, that is exactly what happened to Texas Democrats. Was essentially they knew that the redistricting maps were going to be passed, and it was going to happen pretty quickly as soon as they got back to the state. So how does that translate? Now we are here. They are basically in the same situation. We have gotten the national attention. We do understand that there was a ripple effect within our country and other states looking at how that happened and the play essentially the Democrats did. How does it affect the long-term process in a state that we understand is still very conservative?
Well, I think I'm not in the prediction game, so
right.
I don't
understand.
Want to be able to say, here's what's going to happen in Texas. But I guess the way I think about it is that compared to the alternative, which is not fighting back, the outcome of garnering national attention and really kickstarting other states to put their money where their mouth is. I mean, the California ballot measure explicitly says that this is in response to Texas's gerrymander. That puts attention where it needs to be for a national movement, which ultimately, I hope, leads to federal legislation against partisan gerrymandering. But there's no way to get there without fighting back in this way. And so it rather than take a stab at what's going to happen in the future, I guess it just seems to me, compared to the options on the table for Texas Democrats, this is by far the preferable one.
Alex, let me ask you this. Going back to what Frank was talking about a minute ago, and when we talk about political movements versus social movements, and I would almost think that the goal would have to be to take a political movement and move it into the social arena, because in today's environment, if it's a political movement, instead of making change, it pushes people to their extremes back into their parties. You're attacking what we believe, whether it's valid or not, because I'm a voting Republican or Democrat, I'm going to support this end of it. Is that part of what has to be at play here to make these things successful?
Absolutely. And that's one of the central arguments of the book, is that we dramatically underestimate our social power. The number one predictor of whether you're going to quit smoking is whether your spouse quits smoking. And the number one predictor of whether you're going to put solar panels on your roof is whether your neighbors put solar panels on their roof. And so one of the things that people really don't appreciate is the power that they have, even just by talking to other people in their close circles. So I think there's actually a pretty deep analogy when we're thinking about LGBTQ rights. When a family member comes out and you're talking to someone, how much that can impact you. And similarly, in this case, given that in a state like Texas, an overwhelming majority of folks oppose the gerrymandering, there nevertheless might be a situation where people don't know how many other people agree with them, even people who are, they might have a different party affiliation, but nevertheless, they agree about that issue. And so there's an incredible amount we can do in trying to build social relationships and, being comfortable having uncomfortable conversations and building up, power by trying to be the change for other people.
Speaking of which, losing loudly when the Texas Democrats did that, it was peaceful. It was controlled. They went to Chicago. They had press conferences. They talked to us, and the nation heard them. But then there is losing loudly, protesting loudly that can get out of control, and we've seen it in action. How do you see these two working out? I mean, that's clear. If you have a peaceful protest, you may be heard, but you got to be pretty loud when you're peaceful. You don't have to be as loud when you're not peaceful.
Yeah, I mean, I'm of the opinion that particularly at this moment where we're seeing a resurgence of political violence, that people who are fighting on the side of democracy to be absolutely mindful of the distinction between nonviolent and violent protest. And one thing I think that's helpful when these arguments happen, even amongst people who share goals, is just what the evidence shows from political science and from history and the social sciences more broadly, which is that nonviolent protest works. It works more effectively than violent protest. The Harvard political scientist Erica Chenoweth is the lead researcher on this, and she's really demonstrated it very clearly. We also talk about research from the civil rights movement, from Omar Wasso and other political scientists, who really shows in a very clever experiment that in counties in the South where there were nonviolent civil rights actions, the vote share for civil rights candidates increased. And that was not the case when violence took place. Of course, in any loud action, there's going to be people at the fringes who blur the boundaries. And then there are going to be efforts to sensationalize them. I don't know if you all saw the incredible photo from one of the recent protests where somebody had set a trash can on fire and there were 15 photographers standing around the trash can capturing it for their news outlets, right? That's inevitable to some degree, but the lesson for demonstrators just needs to be clear that nonviolent demonstrations have all the power.
But it's also interesting, right? Because we live in a culture where winning is so important. And I know that, if we're looking at this in our everyday lives, we put a lot of emphasis, I'm not necessarily going to go out and protest, something that major that might be happening, but having that conversation that you're talking about is sometimes it's hard to put yourself out there and lose or have that uncomfortable conversation. So when you look at losing loudly from just a personal perspective, can you give us an example of what that could look like for an everyday person who's not an elected official, but feels like something should be happening?
That's an excellent question, Celeste. And in our book, we do profile a number of folks who were, full-time revolutionaries fighting the battle, as their, organizing principle for their lives. But we also talk about a lot of more everyday things that people can do. And I think, when we're thinking about these uncomfortable conversations, it can be really challenging because we have to distinguish between, on the one hand, what is the immediate reaction that you get, like right when you bring up the topic, right? And it might go very badly in that context, but then separating that from the downstream effects later on. And a lot of times people think that if they try to have that difficult conversation and it blows up in their face, that they're just making things worse. Mm-hmm. And especially if you're a chronically online person, you might just think that everybody's shouting at each other all the time and we need to calm down. But the truth is that the problem now is the same problem that it's always been, which is passive bystanding, people not doing enough. And actually, there's a lot of evidence that suggests that even if people react negatively when you bring something like this up to them, if they don't agree with you, that nevertheless, they might go on to change their behavior later on down the line. They might start to think about things and, no one wants to be criticized in the moment, but nevertheless, to the extent that you try to approach them with care and respect, they might take that lesson to heart and think a little bit differently next time.
We haven't had much compromise since Ronald Reagan. How do you think we could get back there? How rather than being the left that's going to be loud and the right that's going to be forceful, how do we compromise? What's the path? Either one of you. Go make a stab at it there.
That's a big question. Yeah. Well, maybe the way to take it is to look at a particular issue. So we write a lot about climate change in the book. And I think that a path of compromise, from my perspective, is one that frames the issue in terms of its effects on our everyday lives. So climate advocates have been trying for decades to get people motivated to take action around climate based on fears about the far future or sea level rise or extinction for endangered animals and so on. But really what we're seeing now, and we're going to see a lot more of, is the effects on our utility bills, the fact that we can't get insurance on our homes. And to me, that's a compromised position to focus on those things because it's what people who don't care at all about climate change care about. But if it can get us into policy positions that support the transition to renewable energy, then that's a way forward. So I don't much want to compromise on the need to take climate change really seriously, but I think there's tons of room to compromise on what foot we put forward when we're trying to talk about why it's really important and how we frame solutions.
Yeah. Okay, gentlemen, help me with this part of it all. We talk about evidence. We talk about history. Up until very recent times, I would say that's the best way to look at how things happen. But we seem to be on a different playing field now. Things don't really work the way they used to. You could bring a solid argument that had facts behind it, and people would say, oh, I see that. In today's environment where the message speaks louder than any research or background, does that change how all of this is going to work? Are we in a different time where all of this unfortunately becomes ancient history?
Yeah, another excellent question, Ernie. Thank you. I think that we're absolutely in a different time, and that poses a number of obstacles, but it also poses a number of opportunities. So the first thing to say about the obstacles is, look, social change is hard. Making progress on your political goals is hard, and we don't want to paint it to be something easier than it seems like. But so in that context, the current social media environment, where in the example that Michael gave of one trash can being on fire, and then that's the only thing that the media sees, that people see on their social media accounts and so on, it can be really difficult. But when we're living in the current social media environment, that also creates a lot of opportunities to reach out to people. And so I think the number one thing that kids want to be today is an influencer. And and bearing that in mind, I think there's an opportunity for young people today to try to be an influencer in a political context and try to talk to people. And there's a lot of successful streamers who host these long sessions. Maybe they're playing a video game with a large group of people, but they're also talking about their everyday lives and the way policies are affecting them. And that's an opportunity to influence people in a way that we didn't see before.
Well, fascinating.
And if I could just add to that.
Sure.
Sorry, do you mind if I just add one quick thing?
No, please.
Which is, we were talking a little bit earlier about what's at stake when the Texas Democrats left, which are voting rights. I think in many ways we as a political society have lost the muscle for talking about the basic values of democracy and the basic goals behind why we have the political system we do. And so infusing into those conversations that Alex is talking about, what we used to call civics, just what it is we're trying to do in living together in a diverse society, I think is going to be the path forward for overcoming the kind of information bubbles and impossibilities of conversation that you're rightly pointing to.
Michael Brownstein is the chair of the philosophy department at John Jay College, and Alex Madva is a philosophy professor at Cal Poly Pomona. Thank you both for joining us today on Hello Houston.
Thanks, guys. Go Bertrand Russell.
And
I
go
thought you were
Birds.
going to say go Birds. You're talking to two Philadelphia natives.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for having us.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining
I'm
us.
still smarting from the Astros beating the Phillies a couple years ago in the World
Get
Series.
used
Go
to it.
Astros.
Sorry about that.
Coming up, we'll discuss AI deepfakes. Stay with us as Hello Houston continues.
Federal funding for public media has been cut. In response, we're creating Houston Public Media's Resiliency Fund. Donations made toward the fund will directly counter the loss of the $2.2 million in federal funds that were cut annually and strengthen our station's foundation to provide our services into the future. Contributing to this fund is easy and quick and makes all the difference to our station. Help build the Resiliency Fund now at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate.
Long list of recent political violence in America. A Minnesota state legislator murdered in her home. The Pennsylvania governor's house set on fire. An assassination attempt on then-candidate Trump. In the next installment of our weekly series, If You Can Keep It, the growing threat and what it means for our democracy. That's next time on 1A.
You can hear 1A coming up today at 2 p.m. Ellen Benninghoven and Dr. Michael Schaefer are proud sponsors of Houston Matters with Craig Cohen. Tune in Monday through Friday at 9 on News 88.7.
Support comes from Stages, presenting The Lehman Trilogy, about three brothers whose business shaped generations. Written by Stefano Massini, adapted by Ben Power, directed by Derek Charles Livingston. More at stageshouston.com.
Tonight on Houston Public Media TV 8, following an Antiques Roadshow vintage double feature at 7, American Experience concludes its look at President Lyndon Baines Johnson at 9. Tonight on TV 8 or stream on the PBS app.
Support comes from Berkman International, providing insights into workplace dynamics and individual needs to help organizations develop talent, improve communication, strengthen retention, and drive innovation. More at berkman.com/connect. Support for Houston Public Media comes from the Elizabeth D. Rockwell Center on Ethics and Leadership, presenting How to Break Up with Your Phone, a lecture with author Catherine Price on September 18th at the University of Houston. More at uh.edu/hobby.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now here's Ernie Manous, Celestia Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
As artificial intelligence becomes increasingly present in our daily lives, an issue that remains a growing concern is the use of AI deepfakes. These are images, videos, or audio that have been altered using AI to depict, in many cases, real people, even prominent figures and celebrities, saying or doing certain things. This technology can often appear realistic and is typically used maliciously to spread false information, scam people, or even depict people in non-consensual pornographic situations. To help us better understand this issue, we're joined now by Bezalel Eithan Raviv, the CEO of the cybersecurity firm Lionsgate Network. Welcome to Hello Houston.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Thank you. If you'd like to join the conversation, give us a call, 713-440-8870.
My first right off the bat question is, how can we realistically get a handle on this AI? You know, as AI continues to just get more sophisticated, the images are getting harder to be able to differentiate between what is real, what is not, and it's already everywhere.
Right. I think we need to, first of all, invest more in security of a whole new technology, right? $500 billion were invested in the past year into AI technologies, and less than a single percent was invested into the security of that space. So it says kind of a lot about the fact that we are racing without calculating the danger within the space.
Mm-hmm. Well, I got to tell you, I don't know if you saw the New York Times test of whether you could determine something was AI or not. I took that test. I looked at these videos, and they're like a video of a TED Talk and an interview and a woman on a building and a newscast, and I did miserably. I got 4 out of 10 right. I couldn't tell. And you know, there's some like a length you can only have is like so many seconds for some of this before it won't work anymore. But this is only going to get worse before it gets better. Mm-hmm. I mean, to Celeste's point, unless you really have a trained eye, you could watch a whole newscast and think that it was real and everything about it was fake.
And they've used reporters right here in Houston on Fox 26. They used a reporter. There was a fake video of her reporting.
Right. In fact, to increase awareness around the topic, we have generated deepfake videos of TV anchors and news anchors in the United States. We've done 16 of those in the past month, where we have basically sampled and cloned voices and images based on anchors' LinkedIn profile to generate 30 seconds of a video that they could not determine whether it's them or someone else. So in a sense, whatever we see now, you had 4 out of 6, right? In 6 months from now, you will have basically zero chance to combat and train. Your eyes will not train anymore. You will not be trained to see the difference as AI basically learn from its mistakes and providing acceleration and correction as it goes.
Yeah, it's kind of like when we first saw this just maybe a year ago or so, and they would have 6 fingers on a hand, and you'd be like, see how obvious you can tell that? We're not seeing those 6 fingers anymore. It's learning, it's getting better, it's becoming more realistic.
So then my question becomes, right off the bat, you said we need to be investing in cybersecurity. Well, exactly who is supposed to be investing into that, and where are these funds supposed to be coming from?
I think we are a human community, right? We are a community of human beings that are pushing so much money into code that has one mission to the whole thing about artificial intelligence is to work on its own and determine on its own and act on its own. So we're pushing so much money, human money, people's money, into a code to become independent. And then obviously the next level is super intelligence, which is essentially the wet dream of everyone in the space to kind of create that super code that will be completely autonomous. Now, what decision that autonomous code will be? Will it be to work with us humans or to work against us? This is the trillion-dollar question no one seems to ask, but obviously Sam Altman of OpenAI is chanting ever since, I would say, May, about the real imminent threats around AI targeting human communities. But again, you would ask, what are the investment OpenAI with their $20 billion investment so far from investors around the globe, how much they're allocating towards security? I think that information will be clouded and under the veil of what they actually invest in. So essentially, everyone wants to win right now. And the holy grail is autonomous AI, basically that code that will work on its own without us knowing what kind of work will it do. So in a sense, who will be putting money towards enforce security of AI spaces and technology? I think we need to kind of, we need to decide that we want to protect human environments, because in a sense, if you create that super autonomous AI and you trained it to work against people, to scam them, embezzle them, trick them, change their opinions so they vote for this candidate or that candidate, we need to have that awareness for us and have that responsibility. In fact, and it's proper to say, before it's too late, because the moment we'll have a super autonomous AI, in effect, there will be perhaps, according to some literature in the space, because we have it in theory, not in actuality, we won't have control over it. And that will be a very gloomy day for humankind.
Mm-hmm. Well, there was a case not long ago where administrative assistant of a CEO was given the word from him, it sounded like, transfer $1 million to this bank account. And she did it. And he said, what did you do? She said, well, you called me, you told me to do this. He said, that wasn't me. So there's already these scams that are happening. What's your biggest fear from all of this? And what can we do about it? And I know you're big on security, but what can I do about it?
Well, first of all, you want to be aware that we are in a twilight zone, right? Like if you have the awareness, then you already know better than someone who's not aware, right? If I'll tell you to go on a walk with me into the forest and it's midday, probably we have less risk than if it's midnight, right? And right now, we don't have the awareness as a community of the threats that AI, because AI doesn't smell and it doesn't speak, and you can't really, see it. It's basically so silent, it's so transparent, and it's so active within our society right now. And my biggest fear is that we will let go of the freedom that we currently have to make a judgment based on logic and sacrifice it or surrender it to something we see that is now real, that is coded for us to act on. That is my biggest fear. And in fact, it's slavery of choice. When you don't have the choice, when you don't have the freedom to choose between what you know to what you want to do or what you want to make up your mind on, then I think that's where we lose freedom of people, of humans.
Unfortunately, I think we're out of time. I've had so many more things I wanted to ask you about this. It's a fascinating topic, and I worry we're heading down a path. You've shown what we're worried about. I don't see where the solution is yet, but we'll have to revisit.
We'll have to have you back on. Bezalel Eithan Raviv is the CEO of the cybersecurity firm Lionsgate Network. Bezalel, thank you for joining us today on Hello Houston.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Coming up, we'll continue diving into today's top stories. Stay with us for the second hour of Hello Houston. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned. There's more Hello Houston on the way with Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley. For the latest in local news, subscribe to the Hello Houston daily newsletter at houstonpublicmedia.org. Hello Houston is a production of Houston Public Media. The opinions expressed by the guests of this program are solely their own and do not represent the views of management, staff, or underwriters of Houston Public Media. This is News 88.7.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from St. John the Divine Church, celebrating 20 years of the Laterno organ with a concert featuring organist Ken Cowan, Saturday, September 20th at 5 p.m. Open to the public. More at sjd.org.
We have a slight chance of an afternoon shower or thunder shower, the high getting up to 93. Right now it's 87. This is your NPR station, KUHF. Houston News 88.7, a service of the University of Houston. It's 12 o'clock.
Just ahead on this hour of Hello Houston, we'll continue diving into today's top stories, including reactions to the assassination of conservative activist Charlie Kirk.
And I'm Frank Billingsley. We'll also talk with Seay of Ecclesia Houston about affordable housing from a policy and regulation perspective.
And I'm Celeste Diaz-Sherman. Plus, we'll also learn about the Houston Polish Harvest Festival, which takes place this weekend.
And we want to hear from you. Give us a call or text us at 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. You can also watch us on YouTube by going to hellohouston.org and clicking the big orange banner.
Hello Houston continues right after the news from NPR and News 88.7.
Hello Houston is made possible in part by founding sponsors John Bradshaw and Kathy Sanders, and by gifts from listeners like you.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. Vice President J.D. Vance is hosting Charlie Kirk's radio show today in tribute to his close friend.
I wanted to use this show today to advocate for Charlie, to talk about him, to talk about what kind of a guy he was, to talk about what kind of a man he was, what kind of a husband and father he was, and to take people, most of them from inside the administration, but some of them from without, who knew Charlie best, and to talk about what he meant to them, what he meant to this administration, and what he meant to the conservative movement.
Turning Point USA is expected to host a memorial service for its slain co-founder this Friday at State Farm Stadium in Arizona. The conservative activist was gunned down last week at an outdoor rally on the campus of Utah Valley University. Governor Spencer Cox says the alleged shooter, Tyler Robinson, is not cooperating with investigators who've been trying to determine motive. Yesterday, Cox said authorities believe the 22-year-old has left-leaning beliefs and did not like Kirk. He also raised details about Robinson's roommate and romantic partner as a man who is transitioning to a woman. It is unknown whether transgender politics had any correlation to Kirk's assassination. President Trump is expected to leave for the UK tomorrow for a second state visit. NPR's Danielle Kurtzleben reports British leadership is attempting to influence Trump on foreign policy.
UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer delivered the invite from King Charles in February, saying that this would be an unprecedented second state visit for a U.S. president. The rare honor has a purpose, says Evie Aspinall, director of the British Foreign Policy Group think tank, to nudge Trump in the UK's direction, particularly on assisting Ukraine.
It seems almost crude, but it's almost exactly that. The UK knows that kind of its leverage and its soft power when it comes to Trump comes through the royal family, who has a long affiliation and a kind of affinity to the royal family.
President Trump has been talking about new sanctions on Russia over the weekend, saying he would take action only if fellow NATO countries stop buying energy from Russia altogether. Danielle Kurtzleben, NPR News.
The Ohio Valley and Northeast are very dry right now based on the latest data from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Here's NPR's Rebecca Hersher.
Very little rain fell in the Ohio Valley region in August, according to the new data. It was the driest August on record, going back more than 130 years. And it was the second driest August ever recorded for the Northeast. Ohio, Kentucky, and Vermont all broke records for the least rainfall ever in August, a month that's usually quite rainy in the eastern U.S. Much of the country is now experiencing drought conditions. The most severe drought is in the western U.S., particularly Arizona, New Mexico, and the Rocky Mountain states. Climate change makes extreme droughts more likely around the world. Rebecca Hersher, NPR News.
You're listening to NPR.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Alexandra Hart. A prominent Texas congressman says he is not running for re-election. Michael McCall told ABC this week that he's leaving Congress when his term expires.
I'm going to serve the remainder of my term, but I'm not looking for a new challenge in the same space, that would be national security, foreign policy, but just in a different realm.
McCall represents the 10th Congressional District, which stretches from the Austin suburbs to west of Houston. He formerly served as the chair of the House Foreign Affairs Committee. Last week, Republican Morgan Luttrell also announced he was not running for re-election. The GOP is also losing Chip Roy, who is stepping away from Congress to run for Texas Attorney General. U.S. Senator Ted Cruz has removed what he called hate speech graffitied on Highway 59. The words F. Charlie Kirk, using the full expletive, was seen written on a wall near a railing on the freeway. Cruz says his team has notified the Texas Department of Transportation about what happened. He posted a video on social media showing himself covering the graffiti with white paint. Kirk was a conservative influencer who was fatally shot last week while speaking on a university campus in Utah. The Texans' home opener is tonight. They take on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at Energy Stadium following a loss to the LA Rams in Week 1. Jeff Balke is a writer for the Houston Press. He told Houston Matters while the Texans were favored to win the division at the start of the year, the competition is proving to be better than originally thought.
This is going to be a very interesting division race for the Texans, and I think the Bucs are a good measuring stick for them early now in the season.
The Colts have started the season with 2 wins and no losses. They're in first place in the Texans division. Kickoff against Tampa is set for 6 p.m. tonight. It's currently 87 degrees on the University of Houston campus, high today near 93. There's a slight chance of showers this afternoon around 3 p.m. Tonight we're looking at mostly clear skies with lows in the mid-70s. I'm Alexandra Hart, News 88.7.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Progressive. Progressive Commercial Insurance protects small businesses from retailers to tradespeople. Progressive covers a variety of business needs with a range of coverages. More at progressivecommercial.com.
From Houston Public Media and News 88.7, it's Hello Houston, an open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870, or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now, Hello Houston with Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
Welcome back to the second hour of Hello Houston. You know, in our first hour, we were talking about cybersecurity and AI and deep fakes, and it is so concerning, I think, for everybody. But as a parent, it freaks me out.
Take that New York Times video test and see if you can tell.
I am, Frank. That is so interesting.
It's very difficult
I'm
to
sure
determine.
I'll pass with
Okay,
Frank.
you take it right after the show.
I'll get like 0 right.
But Ernie, you love to play with AI, like the I don't know what you play with it.
Well, it was an old thing called Face and Hole, was what it used to be called. It would put your face on something. You have to do. Now it's gotten really advanced, and there's like face swap things, and I love those. But I don't do like the videos because I just don't have the patience for it. But I do love to take a picture and put one of our faces. It's usually the three of us.
We've been ABBA. We've been
all over the place. What disappoints me about the last interview is I feel like he did continue to tell us the concern we have here. What I need to understand from his point of view, or even if you're listening and you have a thought on this, how do we reel it back in? What is going to be the point where we get control of it? Because I think right now the conventional wisdom is, well, you go to a source that you know, a New York Times, an NPR, a PBS, that you can trust their reporting to know if something's real or fake. But then they can fake that soon enough.
I think it's going to take laws. I think it's
policy and regulation.
Aren't they already cracking down on anyone who uses AI for child porn?
And adult, yes. It was one of the things, first legislative policies that President Trump passed with Melania Trump, where he signed an executive order to immediately go forward with revenge porn, essentially.
And in an ideal world, that's a perfect solution. The problem is once you're into the internet, what people do and the laws they have to abide by and where they're being generated from and where the server is held and the laws change.
But I also think
so
that was our person that we were interviewing. He was basically saying it's now I think we are going to have to be hyper vigilant in understanding where we're at today.
Watch those videos.
But
it's creepy.
I go back to the fact we can be as hyper vigilant as we want. It's much smarter than we are, and it's getting smarter all the time, and it's much more deceitful, and it's much more. Deceitful is a judgment call. It's becoming so accurate in its ability, and it's so new. Imagine where we've gone from a year ago to now and how these videos look. Imagine from now till 10 years from now. It's like this stuff will be out in. I just don't know how you reel it back in. I just don't know. I don't know that laws do it. I don't know. I mean, maybe it's the collapse of the internet, and then we go back to writing everything by hand.
We did have an interesting YouTube comment. Somebody posted, the truth said, once security becomes profitable, this space will blow up.
Yeah.
So, yes, but we do have a lot going on, and today we have a packed show. Ernie, what do we have coming up?
Coming up, we're going to be talking about affordable housing. And what I like about this particular segment that's coming up is we've done a lot about policy and laws about it. We talk more theoretically about what the problem is. You've invited a guest onto the show who's doing something practical about it and is going to show and prove and educate through example. So that I'm looking forward to. And Polish Festival is coming up.
That's right.
So we got that to come too. How's the weather doing, Frank? Holding up out there?
Yeah, we have a few coastal showers, so 20% chance we might see a quick shower here and there. And that's going to continue all week. Highs of 94, lows of 74. Dew points are coming down a little bit so that the evenings, once the sun goes down, feel pretty good. Yeah. Not quite as good as last week, but feel okay. And then the tropics continue to be fairly quiet, all things considered.
Yeah. When you accepted your invitation to sit with us here at this table, did you think you'd still have to be giving weather every day?
I'll be doing weather my entire life. In fact, I'll probably be an AI weatherman.
That's right. There we go. A holograph.
They'll steal my image, everything. You'll see me doing the weather, but it won't be me.
Well, it's not called stealing the headlines. It's called ripping the headlines, and Celeste has the headlines for us.
Thanks, Ernie. Charlie Kirk's public memorial will take place at State Farm Stadium in Glendale, Arizona on September 21st. And reactions to his death have dominated this weekend's news as many NFL stadiums had tributes for the conservative podcaster. And some people, according to NPR, lost their jobs due to insensitive reactions. Locally, there was protest as U.S. Senator Ted Cruz covered graffiti in Houston that contained a profane message over the Southwest Freeway targeting Kirk. According to a post on X, the senator shared photos and video of him covering the graffiti with white paint. Meanwhile, on CNN, Senator John Fetterman, a Democrat from Pennsylvania, criticized members of his own party for labeling President Donald Trump Hitler or an autocrat, responding to the assassination of Turning Point USA founder Charlie Kirk.
When you hear some Democrats saying Trump is acting like an autocrat.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. If you actually compare him to an actual autocrat, that is not just that. Now, last night, for example, people were complaining. They were protesting about, that's the Hitler thing. You just don't ever compare anyone to Hitler and those kinds of extreme things. And now look what happened to Charlie Kirk. I mean, the man was shot. Now we have to turn the temperature down. It's like we can't compare people to these kinds of figures in history. And this is not an autocrat. This is a product of a democratic election.
We invite everyone to the conversation right here on Hello Houston. And now is the time to join in. You can give us a call or send us a text, 713-440-8870. Do you agree with Fetterman? Do Democratic leaders need to turn the temperature down? Or are they striking the right tone with their base?
And to continue on with that story, Utah governor called social media evil and a cancer. Yesterday on NBC, Governor Spencer Cox said, "I believe that social media has played a direct role in every single assassination and assassination attempt that we have seen over the last 5-6 years. Cancer probably isn't a strong enough word."
We have not evolved that up in a way that we are
capable of processing those types of violent imagery. And by the way, we've seen another one with a gruesome stabbing very recently that went viral. This is not good for us. It is not good to consume. Social media is a cancer on our society right now. And I would encourage people to log off, turn off, touch grass, hug a family member, go out and do good in your community.
The governor also claimed that Charlie Kirk's alleged shooter had leftist ideology and spent a large amount of time in the, quote, dark corners of the internet. The state of Utah passed some social media laws to protect minors most recently in 2024, but they have not taken effect since a federal judge temporarily blocked them. So adding on to Celeste's questions, what are your thoughts? Is social media to blame? I guess the bigger question, is there blame to be laid in this, or is there something else at play we need to talk about? Is it social media? Is it political heat? Is it gossip and talk and accusations and strong political infightings? Where are we with all of this? 713-440-8870. I know I made that very broad, but I think we're trying to narrow this down too much to one point.
Well, we are. We're in very complex times right now. And everybody is trying to police everybody else, whether that's on the internet, whether that's anybody essentially saying things. And it's who gets to define what is appropriate, what is inappropriate, where does that begin? And I think we're all trying to figure this out as we're in these new spaces as a community.
There used to be lines in the sand.
Yes.
There are no lines anymore. It's just
the boundaries of what our elected officials used to say, or leaders within community leaders, maybe not even elected. There was some level of courtesy often shared for one another, and it feels like that is gone away completely.
Yeah.
Well, I'm worried that we don't call out where we really see the problems because we're so worried about the reaction for calling out where the problems may lie. It's who begins these conversations. They may not be the reason the final moment happens, but as you shift the environment in which we live, once you normalize behavior of name calling and attacking people and going after people's political beliefs in a vicious, not just, I disagree with this person because of blah, 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 but you're dumb, you're stupid, you're evil, you're no good. Whoever is saying that, that does build this environment where these activities happen.
Well, I think we all know where that started. I mean, come on, it's been going on now for 12, 13 years.
But it used to be, Frank, when you say that, it used to be one of those things where politicians did mudslinging, right? Or people would say, well, that's just politics. But it feels like even in today's, during elections, the things that are brought up and said about each other is...
Yeah. And it may not
wild.
be, well, it is. It is, the rhetoric is more intense, I believe, now than it used to be. But what adds to that intensity is what the second part of this question came into, is the part that social media plays in it. Because not only, in the olden days, you said something that got covered on the evening news. That's when you saw and heard it. And then there was 24 hours before the next newscast happened where they told it to you again. Now, or it was in the newspaper or whatever. Now it is constant because of social media. It's replayed over and over and over and over again. What is his name? The Democratic guy who, when he won the primary, and he was like, "Then we're going to take you to the White House. We're going to go to here. We're going to go to that state. We're going to win." And he was portrayed as insane because his enthusiasm. But the fact was, he was excited he had won a primary. It ruined his political career.
In Iowa, I remember
That's right. I remember that
too.
too.
If we hadn't had social media in those days, he probably would have lasted and moved forward because it would have been played once and moved on. That was years ago. Imagine today.
Well, I know with the algorithms are so bad, so that if you have one meme, you get more that is just like it.
Yep. Yeah. So we have a call. Again, you can join the conversation, 713-440-8870. We do have a call from Mark from A-Leaf. Mark, welcome to Hello Houston. What is your comment or question?
Well, first, I'd like to say it's super sad, and nobody, of course, deserves to be assassinated. And I feel for his family. But the idea that he was, it's going out on social media, that he was some kind of a woke leftist liberal, and his entire family's MAGA. His grandmother's on record saying they're all registered Republicans. They all voted for Trump. He grew up in a super conservative household. He was an avid hunter, went hunting with his dad. It's probably where he learned to fire a rifle. And it's, when they say they did this, one person did this. A movement didn't kill this man. One person killed this man. And that person wasn't a woke leftist liberal.
Thank you for those comments. He brings up a good point that I've been kind of thinking about lately, and I think we need to address this on the show at some point, and that's how they profile people. We've had a profiler on before on other shows, and I'd love to get her back to talk about this. The point being that, and I think he brings a really good point, a single person pulled that trigger, not a movement, not a group of people. And I think we very quickly look, because truthfully, these are so ultimately rare when you think of the huge number of the population, that we try and find logic in, okay, if this person did it, then a whole movement of people like that are behind that trigger pull. And I don't believe that to be true. I think each individual makes their choices. Yes, they affiliate with certain groups and such. And even in this case, we heard what our caller just said about who he was, and we've got conflicting stories about even that. So we don't know exactly why. Now, there is something, and I apologize for not knowing more of it, maybe either of you will, but there seemed to have been a letter or something led that has been destroyed. I don't understand who destroyed it or why it was destroyed. That's the part I have to look further. If one of our producers can pull that up for me, I'd love that. But that may have had some answers, and then that's going to lead to people, well, if that had answers, why was it destroyed? Did it not fit someone's political belief? So I don't know the whole story, but there does seem to have been something that is no longer available.
But going back to what Frank was talking about before, our caller, the algorithm, and I think that is what is happening so often today is you can get a piece of information, and that information can just be fact, whatever it might be, and immediately whatever political affiliation or an organization that you are with, that algorithm will basically continue to affirm your beliefs instead of providing context and nuance. And it's constant. And again, 713-440-8870. We do have a call from Jay from the West Side. Jay, welcome to Hello Houston. What is your comment or question?
Yeah, I have a comment. Social media is just a reflection of the manners and mores of society. We have a society that doesn't care that much anymore about all that good stuff. And we have leaders who care even less about this. I mean, whether it's on the one side or the other, frankly, I think the MAGA base has just done a big disservice to this whole country because everyone thinks anything is game. So
all right, thanks, Jay. I think where Jay's going with that is that we need to understand that social media sometimes controls the conversation. Right. So it's almost like it can read our mind. So your craziest, darkest, deepest thoughts can find an audience. You can find comrades to think whatever crazy things you want to think. They're all there. And now social media has allowed us to find them, whether you want to call that just the dark internet or Facebook or whatever. It's there. So you can get all of the support you want from social media, no matter how crazy you are. That's what's scary.
Okay, I just want to go back to the note. It was Kash Patel, who's the head of the FBI, had said, speaking on Fox and Friends on Monday, that's today, that they had forensic evidence of the note, but that it had, quote, since been destroyed. And he summarized the note, Patel did, as Robinson writing, I have the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, and I'm going to take it. What I still don't understand is what it means that the note has been destroyed. How do they have forensic evidence of it, but they don't have it? And why wasn't it preserved?
And I did also receive a fact check from one of our executive producer. He says Robinson is a third year, and this was the suspect who allegedly shot Charlie Kirk, the conservative podcaster and leader. Robinson is a third-year student in the electrical apprenticeship program at Dixie Technical College in St. George, Utah. State records from Utah showed that Robinson is a registered voter in the state, but he is not affiliated with any political party. Again, 713-440-8870. We do have a call from Sam from 5th Ward. Sam, welcome to Hello Houston. What is your comment or question?
Yeah, hello, madam. My comment is this, the media presently in the mainstream media is not being very truthful to reporting. They are passing mainly opinions, and there is little follow-up on facts. For example, this interview that they did in on I think ABC. They're only showing one part of the interview in the television, and the main part where the interviewer is giving some comments, it's been hidden. We can only see it online. And this is very bad behavior from the mainstream. And 60 Minutes did the same thing with the interview with Kamala Harris. I mean, they are destroying their own credibility. How do you expect somebody to trust this media when they do this?
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much for your comments and your thoughts on this issue.
All right, I think Lewis is there from the west side. Lewis,
yes, Lewis, welcome to Hello Houston.
Yes, the question is, you blaming social media, you blaming the megaphone, and that is curtailing free speech. So who gets to determine what is free speech and where does it go? Does it have a limit? Are we going to start saying this is who gets to say it? The president?
That's a good question. Yeah, it used to be you're not allowed to yell fire at a crowded theater. That takes free speech too far when that speech endangers other people's lives. So, for instance, there have been some people that have committed suicide and been encouraged to do that by others on social media, and those who encouraged them to do that got in big trouble. Mm-hmm. So no, you don't have full freedom of speech in this country. You can't hurt other people with it. And proving that certain social media platforms do hurt other people with that free speech, that's where we're going to see, I think, the law come into effect.
And I don't know that the terminology is blaming social media as much as acknowledging the role it plays, the technology it is, and how it delivers its message. It's not that we're blaming it, but we need to be aware of the role in which a message travels. Just think in the history of our nation alone, how much quicker we get information now than when we started. Things change, and we have to be aware. What's the word I'm looking for? I'll just leave it at aware. We have to be aware of the changes that it makes. And so social media does have an impact on how information spreads and how quickly and what voices you're hearing, and we need to acknowledge that.
And we also understand our community has a lot of thoughts and questions on this topic. We will continue to talk about this. We're not going to be able to get to all of them, but we want to thank you for engaging with us today on Hello Houston. Again, that number is 713-440-8870. But coming up right here on Hello Houston, we'll talk with Chris Seay of Ecclesia Houston about affordable housing and hear what he's doing about it. This is News 88.7. Stay with us.
Hello, I'm Josh Adams, General Manager of Houston Public Media. This station just lost $2.2 million in federal support annually. To keep our station strong, we've launched the Resiliency Fund, powered by community members just like you. Your support will help bridge the funding gap and ensure these programs remain free and accessible to everyone. If public media and this station matter to you, now is the time to act. Support the Resiliency Fund today at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate.
We know you value Houston Public Media. That's why you're listening right now. Take the next steps and become a new member of the station you rely on. Every gift makes a difference, and what matters most right now is supporting the station that brings you the news and information you rely on. It only takes a few minutes to make a big difference. Join as a new member today at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 888-909-0887.
Support comes from Mercury Chamber Orchestra with 2025-26 concerts, including Bach's Brandenburgs and the Four Seasons in October, Mozart's Jupiter Symphony in November, and more, all performed on period instruments. Tickets and more at mercuryhouston.org.
Support comes from the Welcome Group and Welcome Wilson Jr., President and CEO. With over 9 million square feet of manufacturing and industrial facilities and over 130 locations in Texas and the Southeast. More at welcomegroup.com.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from CertaPro Painters, offering residential and commercial painting services, from color consultations to full project management. Estimates and more at CertaPro.com.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from Houston Grand Opera, opening the 25-26 season with Porgy and Bess, featuring music by George Gershwin, blending jazz, blues, and spirituals. Tickets available now at hgo.org.
now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now back to Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
Often on Hello Houston, we discuss affordable housing from a policy and regulation perspective. The conversation usually focuses on policy affecting zoning restrictions or tax incentives to improve opportunities for builders and options for residents right here in Houston. But we wanted to dive in deeper today with someone who isn't just talking about it, but doing something about it. Joining us now to tell us more is Chris Seay, the pastor, self-proclaimed Houston lover, and quite possibly one of the biggest Astros fans I know. Chris, welcome to Hello Houston.
For sure, Celeste. So good to be with you.
And if you would like to join the conversation for the question or a comment for Chris, you can give us a call or send us a text at 713-440-8870. Now, Chris, before we jump into, the housing market and affordable housing right here in Houston right now, how did this kind of become a thing for you?
Well, I'm a Houstonian, right? And I'm a pastor. So if you love the city, and I'm not just a Houstonian, and I'm not just a pastor, I'm a native Houstonian. My dad and grandfather were also pastors in Houston. So we were pastoring my family in this city when it was a small town in the 1950s when my grandfather was pastoring here. And the city's changed. It's transformed. And I started Ecclesia 26 years ago in Montrose. And from the beginning, we've been working with brothers and sisters that were living on the streets. And we're really effective at that. I just came from our downtown campus, and today's shower day, so we got shower trailers outside, and there are about 120 people there waiting to get a shower and getting services for the homeless. And I've been watching that, and we love getting people into homes. But I've watched Houston. What used to be our superpower, right, was that we were an affordable city, the best great city you could live in that was affordable. And we're no longer affordable. Not only are we not affordable, the scarcity of housing has made it so expensive that if you live on an hourly wage, you might end up living in your car. You might end up on the street. And that's just it's not right. So because I care, we started going, we got to do more than just supportive services for people that are living on the streets.
So what is the new profile of the homeless person?
Well, historically in Houston, we would say most people are living on the streets because of some mental health issues or addiction. And we're not seeing just that anymore.
Right. So what are we seeing?
We're seeing people that are working an hourly wage and they can't find housing. They can't find something they can afford. They're evicted, they're moved to the next spot, but that eviction makes it impossible to get into future housing. And so you end up couch surfing, you end up sleeping on not just under underpasses, but in different places that you have to get creative. And a lot of people are living in their cars in Houston.
And just one thing also to point out while you're talking about this is not just you can't afford it, that a good chunk of Houstonians, you can probably give me the statistics on this, are one paycheck or two paychecks away from being on the street.
100%. So one of the reasons we're doing this is one of the church members. I have some really great church members. One of them's in the room. And they push me, they push you to go, we got to do something that really matters. Ruth Lopez-Turley, who's the executive director of the Kinder Institute's a member of our church. And the Kinder Institute's data says exactly that, right? That about half the people in Houston don't have $300 for an emergency if it were to happen, much less, the money to get in and pay a deposit to get into new housing. So
I bring that point up, though, just so everyone listening realizes there's a lot more potential to becoming unhoused than you think. It's not just, like you said, mental illness or drug. It's not just having a low-paying job. You can be having a job. You cannot be doing it, or something could happen, and you could be facing this. But you folks, and this is why you're here today, are trying to do something to fix that.
Yeah, so I joined a cohort about a year ago, a group that does affordable housing called Enterprise led. And there were 12 faith leaders, all of us that care about building affordable housing. And some of that's going to happen. One of the great things in Texas is we're pushing for churches to build housing on their land. And our church has 3 campuses, one downtown, one in Lindale Heights that's total Latino, and one over on the west side in Piney Point. And on 2 of those, we're working to build affordable housing. We're looking to acquire more land. And so not only on that land, the thing that occurred to me in that cohort was the reality that these vacant office buildings that are either going to be a blight across the city post-pandemic, they're just going up every day. Or we've got to find a way to convert them to real, safe, clean, affordable housing. And so we've acquired a really great building. We recently got it under contract. It's at 3838 Hillcroft. If you know Houston, you've been by this building. You could walk from there to the original Papacitos on Richmond. It embodies.
Maybe I'm going to move.
You might want to live with us. It's a great spot. It embodies what's best about Houston, right? We're the most ethnically diverse city in the United States, and I think that means we got the best food. And that spot on Hillcroft is right at the beginning of Chinatown, at the edge of Indiatown, and it's Majoridad Latino. So you've got all those things happening. And it was a famous building at the time, designed by a guy named William Jenkins. He was a famous architect in Houston. He was actually the chair of the architecture school here at the University of Houston. The library for the architecture school is named after him. And it was a classic mid-century building, one that needed to be preserved. So we're working to buy it. It's a lot for a church, about $4.3 million to buy the building. And we've got it under contract, and we're working on it. You can see photos and hear more about it on our website if you go to ecclesiahouston.org/housing.
But now, Chris, what about skeptics? There are skeptics that say essentially, churches have portfolios of real estate. How do you balance that? And I know that you talk about SB 854 in an article that you wrote for the Houston Chronicle.
Yeah.
How do you reconcile perhaps some people that are like, should churches be buying that?
Well, some of the best examples we have in the city so far for Houston have been churches like Rudy Rasmus's church downtown, St. John's, that have been doing this work. Our take is if churches don't do it, nobody's going to do it in terms of choosing to build housing that's affordable. None of the churches are going to be getting rich off building luxury high-rises, right? It's not what we're called to do. It's not what we do. But to build affordable housing for people that have been on the street, supportive housing, it's a prime spot for churches, but it's going to take a lot of support, both from churches and community to pull it
Can you
out.
tell me a little more? So you buy this building, now you've got to build it out as 1 and 2 bedroom apartments or dorm style?
It's actually, you're hitting at a fascinating question, Frank. So one of the questions, right, and when you've got Houston's Majoridad Latino, this neighborhood's Majoridad Latino, but most affordable housing are built with very small single resident occupant units. And so those work well if you've got a single person living on the street, but they don't work well for families. So we're looking at a mixture of small units and then larger units. And what we know is you don't find Latinos in Houston that live by themselves. If you ask most Latinos, and if they knew somebody that lived by themselves, they go, "What's wrong with them?" Right? You live with your abuela, you live with your family, you live with your kids, you live in community together, and you take care of each other.
So you say affordable. I'm just trying to get an idea. How much? $4.3 to buy it. You're going to spend another $4 million.
Renovating
it.
For sure. But that's why you have generous Houstonians and you have churches that come together and you provide services and houses. And the hope is, my hope is that we'll be about half what most of the housing is in that area. So if you were to rent a 2-bedroom apartment in that area, it'd be about $1,500 to $1,800.
Let's go into that whole concept of what is affordable. When you talk about this, you're solving one of the problems by having a place for people to live. But we started this conversation off by saying people who work a minimum wage job can't afford housing. Most people, 50% or so, don't have $300 in savings if they miss a check. Eventually, what is the terminology of affordable housing, especially in an environment where everything is going?
You need a mathematician because there's a great formula. And when you're implementing affordable housing and we hire managers to run this building, that's what they're looking at is what do you make and how do we make sure that you're not spending more than 30% of your income on that housing. And so whatever your income is, and our take in Houston, the great thing about this city is we respect people that work. Right. So that's why the migrant issue, it ought to feel different here. It is different here because in Houston, if you want to work, you've got our respect. And I don't know about you, but if you pull up to Home Depot in a pickup truck here, you'll have people jump in the back of your truck and they want to work. And so my hat's off to those people. If any of us raised kids that had a work ethic, that they literally jumped into people's trucks in order to work, we'd be looking for them to do a parenting class, right, to teach us.
And they do good work.
They do good work.
You're very proud of their work.
They work hard.
Yes.
And so it's a lot of those folks that we need to be able to say, how do we give you a space? So at the end of the day, you have to follow the formula. What do you make? And how do we get you at 30% or under of what you're of what you're actually making.
We did some work with the unhoused where we were working on a documentary, and the approach that we saw going on in Houston now was that it's not just getting them the house. It's all the ancillary things that go with it. It's making sure we have an environment that has jobs that pay enough that people can afford that. It's making sure they have medical care so they can go to their jobs and all of that. You're doing the first piece of it, but you can only touch so many because we see so many people unhoused. How does the city as a whole, from your point of view, redefine who we are to be a welcoming city where people can live, be sheltered, and thrive?
I think we need a lot of this, and I think we need other churches and community partners to reach out in this. Some of what you're talking about are the things that we're going to do on the first floor of this building. So the first floor of the building is supportive services. So it's a Head Start program, so your kids can be in a program so you can work, or take an ESL class, or get vocational training so that you can make a higher wage. So we've got to have some projects that do both and, that give you housing and help you get a leg up as we do that. I think we're really good at that as Houstonians. We just got to figure out how to work together.
Yeah, but outside of the church and your work, what is your message to city leaders who may be listening, to folks who want to make a difference? How do we look at this city differently as we move forward?
Well, make it easy for us, right? So remove the barriers. So where our church downtown is next to the code enforcement building, right? There's a number of things they can do that make rehab, specifically, I would say in Houston, we're going to have massive office complexes come on the market under foreclosure that are either going to sit vacant and not be able to pay taxes, or we're going to find a creative way to do something amazing with them. That will take help from the city, that we're going to have to be able to come in and say, how do we adjust a code? This is an industrial elevator, and it's made for an office building, and it's not really that different than a residential elevator. Let's make it easy to recode it so that it passes the inspection. And we can either be friendly or we can be unfriendly.
We also had a comment on YouTube from Cosme Garcia who wants to know, will rent be tied to income and means testing?
What you want to do is go into the neighborhood and you know the median income in the neighborhood that you're working in. So in that way, it wouldn't be tied to every single person's income, but you target that medium lower income so that those folks can have access and be able to pay a reasonable rate.
And how long would you expect someone to stay in your affordable housing?
You know, if you create the right environment, I think we're going to have people that come and stay for decades. You build this out for the long haul. It's long-term housing. It's not short-term. My hope is that we're really close to Wisdom High School, that we'd have families. We've done a lot as a church with the people. They don't exist fully anymore, that would do wraparound services for the public schools. And what we find is they're struggling with students that, how are they going to advance in school when they're sleeping in their car and they don't have a place? And so we're going to work a lot with the school to say, who are the families that need the most help? How do we give them stability and help them thrive?
So for people that might not be religious at all, they don't go to church, would you say that in some ways that you're crowdsourcing funding for this?
Yeah, for sure. I think this is an opportunity for everybody to chip in a really tangible way and go, let's try an experimental project, right? A vacant office building that would have been demoed, or it would have just sat empty as a blight. Why not transform it? And by the way, it's this poured concrete building, right? So it's like, it's not going anywhere. There's not the worst storm that comes to Houston. I mean, it's just not going to touch this thing. And so it would be a shame to tear it down. Let's do something together where we transform it, create an environment, and then see, maybe we could do it on a larger scale. Maybe we can be a model for other communities and other service organizations to do something that really continues to advance the impact.
Now, Chris, you were in Austin and you testified to Congress about this. Talk to us a little bit of how that conversation went and the response that you got from our elected leaders.
Yeah, those have been great. The response both from elected leaders and from people that are following the conversations, right? Because there's a number of things they can do. They can free up the opportunity for churches to build housing on their land. They can free up lot sizes so that we can build multiple spaces. We can put ADUs in existing homes. And, somebody's got a backyard and all of a sudden, you've got another part of your family that can live in the backyard. That helps solve this problem. Because at the end of the day, all of this problem really is about supply and demand. And the reality is it's about inventory. We don't have the inventory for housing in Houston to make it affordable. And what happens when inventory goes down? Prices go up. and prices have gone way up.
What's your timeline on this project?
So we're in the process to get some of the tax credits. It qualifies for some historic tax credits. That's really important on this project, and we're moving through that process and hoping to start construction middle of 2026. So
wow,
yeah.
So what's the name of it?
It's called The Hill. So it's the Hillcroft Affordable Housing Project, or the Casa de Hospitalidad.
Let's step back from just the project itself, and I'm assuming your studies, your look at other communities, other places around, let's even go globally.
Yeah.
How do they handle this situation? Where have you seen true success stories, and what are the elements that make that happen?
There are a lot of them. And so places like New York City are places that we're looking, because they've had to deal with this problem a little bit longer than we have. I've got a coach who's a pastor in Brooklyn that they're building affordable housing at a massive scale, right? Mm-hmm. And he's got people. What happens is people like me, pastors aren't perfect, and none of us are, but we care about the people in our community, and we're aware of what's going on. And so what I'm learning is, whether it's in Detroit or whether it's in Brooklyn or whether it's in D.C., there are pastors there that have been going, this has been a problem for a while. We need to do something. And so my coach in Brooklyn, I'll be up there to see him and learn how did they do this and who managed this problem. And we're all kind of working together to try to figure it out. So from what I'm gathering,
you pretty much feel it's the inventory is the main problem.
Well, inventory, it all comes down, if costs are going to come down, inventory has to go up. And the reality is there is not enough housing in Houston for the people that desire to live here. And we're going to continue to grow, and we should continue to grow. We're the best city in the United States. Nobody compares to us in any of the ways. Nobody compares to our Astros that are going to go on a tear this week, or the Texans
tonight.
Yeah, my wife Kristen and I will be at the game tonight. It's Monday Night Football. We're going to win. We've got so much going on in this city. But I will promise you, the best part of our city is over on this corner. If you go to eat great food with Kaiser over at Himalaya, right? That Anthony Bourdain loved that restaurant, right? Mm-hmm. You start going down Bel Air, of 12 miles of just unbelievable Asian food. You start to see a picture of, like, this is a great city to live in.
Speaking of painting pictures, do me a favor here. Probably not where you usually want to stand, but help us understand what the picture is if we don't do these things. Oh. What happens to our city?
I think we are going to see hardworking, good people and their children living on the streets in places that are not they're not safe, clean. It doesn't give them an opportunity to do well. And what happens? Crime goes up, poverty increases, and people that have the potential to really contribute to society are not in the place to do that.
So investing at this point gives you better rewards later
Huge
on.
rewards.
Saves you money.
Huge rewards. And that's what we need as a city. Some massive investments. And in Houston, we don't wait for the government to do it. We expect the government to help and not be an impediment. But in this city, citizens come around, and I'm glad FEMA helps after hurricanes, but you know who helps is Houstonians help. Mm-hmm. Like churches help, community partners help. And so this is the same kind of problem. So it just makes sense as a pastor, like, you do something.
Which, Chris, I know this is way off topic, but I have to ask you, because on Hello Houston, we bring a lot of different views and perspectives to the conversation. What is it like pastoring in today's day and age? I mean, and I know that's a really big question.
It is.
But just from your perspective, and we only have like a minute left, but still.
Well,
curious.
you know, I came to this work honestly, right? My dad and grandfather both pastored in this city. I think the political climate is really a hard place for us to lead well. But it's the same experience I get, Celeste, when I do these trips to Israel and Palestine. I've been leading the church. My grandfather did 30 trips to the Holy Land in his life. I'm only at 18. But our trips spend equal amount of time with Palestinians and with Israelis and with Jews, right? We have some good friends called the Chefs for Peace, and they're Christian, Muslim, and Jewish chefs. And the politicians in Israel and Palestine can't figure it out, but the chefs know what to do, right? Regular people know what to do. And so as pastors, what we want to do is get people across the table. We have an expression at Ecclesia that we say, it's impossible to hate people that you eat great food with, right? Now, if you eat bad food, you might hate them.
You can hate them then.
But if you go to Papa's Brothers, right, or you go to Los Tios, or you go to one of the great restaurants in our city, and you sit down and you hear other people's perspective. So as a pastor right now, our obstacle is nobody was listening. Your show helps, right? Because people can listen. We think as pastors, we have a role in that too, to help people will you please be curious and listen to each other?
Well, they are listening. Tell us, how do we get involved in this? How can we help you?
So if you go to our website, ecclesiahouston.org, and just go to /housing. You can look at the rest of the website if you want. It talks all about this project. It gives you a place to give. I would love to. I've told people, if you want to host people in your home, I would love to come have dinner with you. I'm an amateur sommelier. I'll pour wine for you. And invite friends to say, would you guys want to give to something like this that would help build housing for Houstonians? There are a lot of ways. We're going to have service opportunities going forward in the building. We're going to have great partners in the building. But we think it's important to innovate and try something new and see how we can all work on this problem together.
Good luck.
Chris Seay of Ecclesia Houston. Chris, thanks for joining us today on Hello Houston.
Thank you.
Coming up, we're going to be talking all things Polish Festival right here. That's happening this weekend in Houston. Stay with us as Hello Houston continues. With federal funding cuts, Houston Public Media has lost $2.2 million annually. In response, we have launched the Resiliency Fund, an urgent initiative to protect the programs and services you rely on. That includes PBS Kids, that provides free educational programming to children and families across Greater Houston. Your support of the Resiliency Fund helps keep this vital service accessible to our community. Give now at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate.
PM on News 88.7.
This is Eric Glass. On This American Life, we like stories that surprise you. For instance, imagine finding a new hobby and realizing
to do this hobby right, according to the ways of the masters, there's a pretty good chance that you're going to have to bend the law to get the materials that you need.
If not break it.
Yeah, to break international laws.
Real life stories, really good ones, every week.
This American Life is coming up Wednesday night at 9 o'clock. Support comes from Navasota Theater Alliance, presenting Don't Dress for Dinner, a comedy about a romantic weekend that gets interrupted by too many mistresses and an uninvited wife. Performances September 12th through October 5th. Tickets at navasotatheater.org.
Support comes from Miller Outdoor Theater, presenting Sound in Motion from Musica, a fusion of music, dance, immersive projection design, and neuroengineering. This Friday, open to the public. More at milleroutdoortheater.com.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from British International School of Houston, where learning is enhanced through collaborations with Juilliard, MIT, UNICEF, and IMG Academy. More at bishouston.org. Support for Houston Public Media comes from Hildebrand MBA at UT Austin's Macomb School of Business, offering the weekend MBA at Houston. Campus visit September 20th. Details at texasmbaevents.com. Make it here.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now here's Ernie Manous, Celestia Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
Someone brought food.
Yum.
The beloved Houston Polish Festival, Dzinski, returns this September with 3 full days of music, food, dancing, and rich cultural celebration that will transport you straight to the heart of Poland. A vibrant tradition that's been a little bit of everything for everyone with all things Polish. And to tell us more, we have Jolanta Mazewski-Dryden with the Polish Harvest Festival. Jolanta, welcome to Hello Houston.
Hello, Houston.
When does all this start?
It starts this Friday.
Oh, it's a Hello Poland.
Yeah, well, I just got back from Poland about a week ago.
How was it?
Really? Oh, it was wonderful. The weather was great. We went into the mountains. We went into Krakow. My feet hurt.
Yeah. I spent a week in Warsaw and had the most delightful time. I don't know what I was expecting, but oh my God, it was wonderful. The people were warm and friendly, the food, the culture, everything. It was, so now I'm all excited about this.
Yeah,
and that
you
was
had
years
to have
ago.
a shot with every bit of food there was.
And then moose, or what was it called? It was a pig knuckle or something.
Oh
it was
my
that
gosh,
big
yes.
joint. Oh my God, you think, what is that? It was delicious.
The
But you
food,
couldn't
yes.
eat it.
You eat 4 times a day in Poland.
Yeah.
So we know if we've been before what to expect. Someone doesn't know what to expect at the Polish Festival. Sell me on it.
All right. Well, color. all the colorful costumes and all, and it's just probably one of the most colorful festivals there is. You have food. You have pierogi, you have gołąbki, you have Polish sausage. Oh, of course, you have Polish beer. You have pickles. You have, the desserts. These ladies know how to make desserts that you just have to take 10 or 12 of them as you're just walking by. Then they have Polish bread that they make with beautiful designs on it, and that's part of Dożynki, which is a harvest festival. So before I go to the harvest festival part, well, there's so much going on. You have dancers out there, and in Poland, there's like 16 different provinces, and each of them has different costumes, and they dance differently. So you're going to see lots of costume changes, and they're beautiful.
Where is it?
It's going to be at the Our Lady of Częstochowa Polish Catholic Church off of Blaylock and I-10.
Got it.
It's there.
Sounds like fun.
And admission is free.
Oh, really?
Well,
it's completely free.
Just show up and come hungry.
Show up. We even have a dance. We have our Wawel dance group, which are the younger ones and the older ones. We have Babcia Wawel, which are grandmothers who love to tease the audience and perform with them. And we have a Polish school. And so the school children also perform, and you'll hear and see them singing old traditional Polish songs and doing the things the kids used to do in Poland when they were little. So it's like you've got the beer garden, you've got the amazing silent auction, which you think everything is wrapped up beautifully, from Polish crystals to Polish pottery to books, American beer to, you got to please everybody.
Trend in this interview. Liquor keeps getting mentioned.
I'm sorry.
No, we have no problem with that. Quickly, my question though, a lot of these festivals I know, you're on the inside. You know, when's the right time to go where the crowds aren't too busy, where you can actually get in, do what you want. It's not a zoo, because this happens.
That's hard, because you can come in early on Friday. It's a quieter day, and we're just ramping up. We do have vendors, so you can see the vendors. You can talk to people. You can learn a few Polish words. You can dance a few things. The dance group will get you up to perform. You will get wonderful Polish.
If you're not watching on YouTube right now,
you should be on YouTube.
Oh my God! I'm leaving all this for you guys.
Oh well, we won't tell you not.
We won't argue with that.
Oh my! And they even have Polish pizza.
What is Polish pizza?
You know what? I could tell you, but then you wouldn't show up. So you got to show up.
And we know Ernie loves pizza. He makes a deep dish.
You hand me this plate. I'm going to put it right here, and they've got a camera that can grab it.
Oh my God! Certainly.
Yay, Jolanta! Yay, Jolanta! Thank you.
Warm too.
I would not bring you cold food. That would be just inappropriate.
So it's there if they want to grab the shot of it, and you can see it on our YouTube channel. Pierogi, talk to me a little bit about that. I have done what you're probably going to think is a sin. I bought the frozen ones at the grocery store, taking it home. I don't find flavor in them. What is the trick to serving pierogi, and what makes it so yummy?
Fresh. Everything has to be fresh.
So those frozen ones aren't going to do it?
You can, but if you're going to use the frozen ones, bacon and onions, and fry them up a bit.
Oh, yum. What's your favorite Polish food? Your favorite?
Oh, my gosh.
Stop it. Give it to me.
There's so many. I mean, in Poland, you always have to have chicken soup, but it's called rosu, which is, it's just different than chicken noodle soup. Yeah. And you have to have it. It's just the most delicious thing there. But then cutlets, pierogis, the original pierogis, gołąbki, which are the cabbage rolls. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's soups are amazing. Mushroom soup, rye soup.
If people were to come and they don't know the names of all these things, but they want to try a nice sample, there's no impediment to not knowing what the actual names are.
No, everybody will talk to you in English.
But
they'll talk to you.
The cabbage rolls, but I don't know the name of it. And I want to see. Do you have like a sample plate that has a whole bunch of it on it?
Yes, they do. They have a sample plate, so you can taste everything, or you can ask your neighbor and just take from them, which I'm really bad about doing. So yeah, the festival has so much going on in it, and it is a grand celebration because it is Dożynki, which is the harvest festival. Mm-hmm. In Poland, in the Slavic countries, I believe Dożynki started about the 16th century. And it was with the landlords. After the harvest, people worked hard, and they would always, after they harvested everything, leave a plot of the best not cut down. And then on that day, they would go in and cut it down because that's the best part. They would have the best harvesters cut it down, and the ladies who did the best milling would be the ones that make this special bread. And then they would have this massive festival. They would take whatever parts of is left, wheat or whatever, in the fields, and they would make wreaths or massive garlands that would be could be 9 feet long, and they'd walk around and the priest would bless them, and then they would give these to the landlord as a thank you for everything they've done. But
well,
this
we
is all
thank
at
you
the festival.
for bringing what you've brought and for the festival.
Yes,
Come on
Jolanta
out.
Mazewski-Dryden is the Houston Polish Harvest Festival. Jolanta, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Hello, Houston, again.
The Houston Polish Harvest Festival is happening this weekend, September 19th, running through Sunday, September 21st, if you need some weekend plans. And that brings us to the end of our show. We want to thank you for listening to Hello Houston. We'll be back tomorrow with more conversations. This is News 88.7.
Thanks for listening to Hello Houston. Join us every Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. to talk all things Houston. The Hello Houston production team includes Garrett Bowman, William Menjivar, Jen Altide, Todd Holslander, and Jim Kovacic. For the latest in local news, subscribe to the Hello Houston daily newsletter at HoustonPublicMedia.org. Hello Houston is a production of Houston Public Media. The opinions expressed by the guests of this program are solely their own and do not represent the views of management, staff, or underwriters of Houston Public Media. This is News 88.7.
Support comes from Blake Hillegeist Real Estate, independent commercial and residential real estate broker with over 30 years experience guiding clients through economic downturns, realty challenges, and everyday life situations. More at BlakeSellsHouston.com.
Your NPR station, KUHF Houston, service of the University of Houston.
Funding for Here and Now comes from MathWorks, creator of MATLAB and Simulink software, accelerating the pace of engineering and science. Learn more